G'day everyone, Rach here from Book Piles. Excuse the non-face version of a video today. It's probably easier just to do one video rather than lots of little clips. Today I wanted to share the progress of my reading for the first half of the year. It is the 8th of July as I am filming this. So I thought I would share my reading journal and talk about some of the highlights that I have had over the first 6 months of the year. When I started the year in the reading journal, I was just in one, it's probably easier to do it this way, Happy Planner. But you can see that it's quite thick. So very early on into the year, I split them into two books. So this book with the book cover, let's do it like that, holds my book catalogue and my archive. We'll come to that shortly. And then this is my main reading journal. So I've probably for the last maybe 3-4 years or so have kept a reading journal on Happy Planner discs. But I think that I am ready to change for next year. So yeah, that'll be interesting to see how that pans out. I feel a sneeze coming. One moment. I hope that was the only sneeze, but I never generally sneeze once. So anyway, we'll just keep going, and if I have to stop again, I'll stop again. All right, so as I said, this is the main component of my reading journal, and I dip into this as and when, and I'll show you that in a minute. So some bits and bobs there, and a to-do list that I don't really do much about. I generally always make myself a cover page with my book stamps. And then that goes into the archive, which you'll see when we get into the other journal. So this is just something that I've had. This was something from a few years ago from Studio Calico. So it's got my keys and stuff on the back. I've just stored bits and bobs on a paper clip here that I use regularly. And we click straight into, what is under here anyway? Okay. We click straight into my reading tracker. Do I have? I do. If I can get it without knocking at the camera. So this is my current read at the moment, and I am reading it for the hardest reading challenge you'll ever do. But I wanted to show you, we can do that without losing my page. For the last few years, I have been keeping a bookmark, a Year in Pixels bookmark. And every time I read, I just put a dot related to my colour code, which is the genres that I most generally read: contemporary romance, historical romance, contemporary fiction, historical fiction, non-fiction, and then other is for all of those other bits and bobs. So I have not read a lot of historical fiction since I started doing this until this year. So I did accidentally print off the wrong one. I normally would have done this one, but it is what it is. So I keep that as a bookmark, and then I keep the same thing in here, which just helps me figure things out. Let's get that out of the way somewhere. So I've got my little key with my colour codes and shortcuts and things like that. So I've got the Year in Pixels, and the other thing that I had put in, actually let's look at the other page. With that bookmark, let's get it back again for a minute. Because I printed off the wrong one, it's harder to notice, and it's easier to look at under here. If you can see, even here, Can you see that there are 4 pink dots? So on that day, I read 4 short stories. It's harder to record that on there. So I came up with this. I saw somebody's video, actually, of how they do their book journal spreads. And they had something along the top of their page like this, and I quite liked that idea. So what I have done is just kind of recreated it for the first 6 months of the year, but where I read more than one book on a day, I've been able to put the couple of dots there. So it's kind of redundant because I'm not doing a lot of reading on the different books on the same day, but it's it just shows where I have, and I will tidy all of this up for next year somehow. Alright, so let's look at the reading log and what I have been reading this year. So I started out with 2 really good strong reads. Lucy Score's The Worst Best Man. I don't know how well you're going to be able to see the covers. I might use a pen to point as well to keep my hands out of the way. And then I finished, so Lucy Score, then I finished the Rome, Kentucky series, In Your Dreams, which is one of my favourite reads of the year so far. So much so that I felt like I wanted to go back and read the other 3 books to look for all the Easter eggs around these 2. It was a great end of the series. So it's a 4-book series. For me, books 2 and this one, book 4, are the favourites of the series. Then I don't know, I don't know what made me decide to try Lights Out, because as you will see, I don't tend to go down the darker line, but I must have been seeing a lot of stuff on Instagram about it, and over time I came to understand that it was and I don't know if it is actually billed as a dark rom-com or not, but I came to understand that that was what it was. So I decided to get it. I read it in one day. I loved it that much. I'm not sure why I docked it half a point, but I did. And then I just read some smuttier books, which were blah compared to what I had been reading. And historical. I read People We Meet on Vacation because I was aware that the film was coming out on Netflix, and I had Netflix because of Bridgerton. And I thought, well, I'll watch the film, but I'd like to read the book first. It was, I don't know. I probably think, and I'd have to check, it would take a while to check, I'm not going to do it for the video. I think I've only read 3 Emily Henrys, and I've only really liked one of them. I have got another 1 or 2 on my shelves, but I'm thinking that she's probably not one of those must-read authors for me. I then got into a series by Rebecca Kincaid, Public Rivalry, and the other 2, The Intern and Taking Over. I started The Lucky River Ranch and read, I've read the whole thing, you'll find out by now. Took a break into non-fiction to read Virginia Roberts Giuffre's book. Then I started it's called The Game Changers, of which Heated Rivalry is the main book, if you like. And I think I started that with a view to thinking it was on one of the channels I could watch that I either subscribed to or had, but it turns out in New Zealand it's not. But I've still read the series. Well, not the whole, I'm not finished the series yet, but I'm up to book 5, I think, is the next one to read. I discovered Lana Ferguson, who I enjoyed, in Enemies to Lovers, which is my favourite trope. And then I think, oh no, I didn't go straight on to the next one. So coming over here again, we're up to a billionaire romance is another favourite trope of mine. Sawyer was my favourite of the Lucky River Ranch books. I gave that 5 stars, even though I'm not a fan of children of any age in smutty books. And that goes back to me being a nanny, which, if you can see on the screen, I don't know if that's going to be big enough to show, is by Lana Ferguson, called The Nanny. I'll come to that in a minute. Yeah, so even though I'm not a fan of single parent or surprise pregnancy or any of those sorts of things, I still really liked Sawyer. For that series was the best book. Duke, I didn't like the main storyline in that, for what I have just said, but that's all I'm going to say on it, in case someone hasn't read it yet. And then we got into some historicals, and it looks like at the moment pretty much all the books that I have read are to do with some of the challenges that I'm doing, which you'll see as we flip over. I think I will just put an alarm on my phone because my camera likes to shut off, and if I'm not looking up to see, we might have a problem. I'll be chatting away and you'll have no idea what I'm talking about. So I read 3 historicals, and then I read The Nanny by Lana Ferguson, and I read that because on one of my bingos I put read outside your comfort zone or something along those lines. We'll find out in a minute. And the biggest out of my comfort zone thing for me is a nanny romance. So luckily for me, the child was older. Like, I wouldn't have looked after a child that age, so it doesn't make it any better as far as I'm concerned, but I enjoyed it enough. I gave it 4 stars. And then I carried on, Heated Rivalry. I discovered Olivia Hale. I don't believe I had read Olivia Hale prior to this year, but I'm not certain. It looks like I've got a few of her books, but whether I've read them until now, I don't know. So this is the first book in the Seattle Billionaires series, which I really enjoyed, and I think it was an Enemies to Lovers, which is what made me read it in the first place. And I liked the series enough that I brought book 2 and read that, and also gave that 5 stars. Then we had Lucy Score's Mistakes Were Made, which is the second story Lake, and I really enjoyed that. The last of the Lucky River Ranch I gave 3 stars to. I wouldn't change my rating for that, but I've changed my view of the book. I feel like now its main job really was to introduce us to the heroine's brothers, who are going to, I think, be Jessica Peterson's next series. And I'm certainly interested in reading the first one, which is called Colt. And I can't remember when it's due out. I might have it in the back of here, but it might be too hard to find. You'll see in a minute. So I'm certainly going to have a look at Colt because it's an Enemies to Lovers, and I enjoy her writing. I did realise, how do I explain this? I came away from this feeling very blah about the whole thing, and I think in the end what it was is there wasn't a lot of angst to my mind, and I didn't realise that until I had read Caught Up and Game On and realised that the higher stakes stuff that are in those darker romance or rom-coms as they are. So I think that was some of my problems with Duke and Ryder. They were just middle of the road, light and fluffy, easy to read, and I didn't. I obviously must have needed more at that point in time. And then, as I said, I have changed my view on Ryder and thinking he's more of a bridge into the next series. I read quite a good historical romance, The Duke's Virgin Spinster by Claire Devon. I enjoyed that. I've put that it's not part of a series. I don't know if it is or I just decided not to carry on. I'm not sure. Finished Into Darkness by Navissa Allen. Game On, book 3, was my favourite of the 3 of them. And then what do we got? Carried on with Game Changers. Hate Mail is something that I had on my radar for a few years and finally got to read it. I read this is the only book from this Summer Love and Amazon series that came out probably April, May time. It was relatively new, I think, when I got it. So I just read Jessica Peterson's one. Then what else have we got here? Some more books for my bingos. Then I discovered, is not the right word, but discovered for me, B.K. Borison. Now I knew about her. In fact, I discovered that I had the first 3 books of the Love Light Farms series on my Kindle and hadn't read yet. And I had brought First Time Caller last year. And I picked this out because I was looking for a book. It's for a challenge further on, and it needed to be within a page range, and this fell into it, so I decided to read this. I probably started, the library shelves that I have behind me normally are done alphabetically by author, and so I probably started on the first shelf at A and just went through the books that I hadn't read that I was interested in reading at the moment to see if they fell in this page range. And this was the first one. So this is what I read. And I was blown away. To the extent that I don't know if this is my favourite book of the year or if it's still into In Your Dreams. What was it called? Yeah, see, I don't even know the name of it. In Your Dreams, the 4th book in the Sarah Adams series. I really liked B.K. Borison's writing. And as I said, I gave it 5 stars. 5 stars. Then I went out probably at the next day. So I finished this, I think, without looking at a calendar, the 6th is a Saturday. I finished the book on a Friday, First Time Caller, and then I went out the next day and found a copy of Good Spirits in my local bookstore and brought it. And the reasoning for that was I was doing Romanceopoly and I needed one more prompt to finish Romanceopoly, and it needed to be one of them was a ghost romance and the other one was, I think, a dark romance sort of thing. There were 2 choices and I only needed one of them, and I was at that point in time I was thinking, I'm not going to wait to Christmas and read Good Spirits to finish off Romanceopoly. I'll read the other option. Then when I read First Time Caller and I was blown away by her writing, I was like, nope, I am going to read Good Spirits. And I went out and got it the next day and read it in 24 hours and loved it, even though I had to suspend my disbelief enough about the hero and heroine having fun times when he was a ghost. Yeah, anyway, I am looking forward to the second book in that series. I already have the second book in that series. So, yeah, I think B.K. Borison is now a favourite author. The next, so I think that's the last Game Changers book that I read, Common Goal. I then dived into a historical fiction. I had seen this book on a couple of videos, but just face out on people's shelves or like that, if you like, you know, all their other books like that and faced out. So I wrote down the name and I looked it up and I realised, which I think sadly I don't have, but I need to check one more location. So The Frozen River is about Martha Ballard, who was a midwife in the 1700s, the late 1700s in Maine, I think is correct, in the US. And many moons ago, and I probably brought it in America, I actually used to own, and I don't think I still do, the Diary of Martha Ballard that was published in the early 90s. And I think I tried to read it a couple of times and I was never in the right frame of mind, and I never read the whole book. And I've either completely unhauled it or it is currently sitting in an unhaul box that I did at the beginning of the year. So I need to check that box to make sure it's not on my bookshelves now. So I've got rid of it somewhere along the line, which I'm now a bit gutted about, given that I have read this and I really enjoyed it. And that was read for a prompt on my book bingo. And I think I actually brought that on the same day I bought Good Spirits, because it had got on my radar by early June, and I was perusing where the romance books are in my local bookstore. On the wall behind is the top 100 books, and in my book bingo I have a prompt for a book from the top 100, and I found it on the top 100, so I decided that I would actually get that book to read. I'm just going to pause the camera for a moment and then come straight back. Okay, so we were just talking about Frozen River. So then some more books, actually, well no, two of them were finishing off the Seattle Billionaires series by Olivia Hale. And then what else have we got here? Another series that I have discovered. The author is Roxy Noir, and the series, or the first book, is Enemies with Benefits, which I really enjoyed. So I am looking at, if I haven't already done it, buying the rest of the series, because I really enjoyed book one. It's the Loveless brothers. They were introduced in book one. It looks like it's going to be a fun dynamic, so I've either brought them all now or I'm about to. And then the last book I finished is, I don't have the cover for yet. I don't think I've got it printed off. Not in Love, which is the book that you're meant to read before you read this. So I have read that, and then we're over here. So I've got room. So this is book 49 so far that I have read, and I normally aim for 60, although I have for the last few years got to about 80. So I think, without doing maths, I may need one more of these to fit in to get closer to 80. So my goals for 2026 are 60 books. Rather than doing 26 in 26, I do 26 by 26, which is I have to have owned the books by the 1st of January 2026, or whichever year. So it's making sure that I'm reading older stuff, not just all the new things that I'm buying. So I'm actually up to 20 of the 26 so far. I put one in and that was wrong. I had only bought it this year. And then to do two readathons or challenges. So I had Romanceopoly, the A to Z challenge, and also I'm doing a following on challenge as well. So I've actually got 3 there. I have completed Romanceopoly, and that's just to remind me it's 27 by 27. My stats page, I've got no books out from the library yet, but it is one of my book bingo squares, so who knows, we might still get to do it, especially if it's the only square left to do. So I consistently read above, or 6 or above, except for March where I only read 3. This is the 6th book, so the book I'm reading now is the 6th book I have read already this month. I think I'm excited for the hardest reading challenge beginning and things like that, and I've basically been reading a book a day until I got to these, and they were shorter books until I got to these two. The reality is I probably won't finish this today, although I might, because I've got to stay up tonight. I've got to stay up tonight to watch a sporting match. Anyway, so I just keep a little sticky with a tally, although I keep my tracker up to date enough that I can go back and count anyway. And then we get into some of the challenges that I'm doing. So the first one is Book Bingo, which is a whole lot of general prompts. So I'm doing pretty well on that. There's a couple of things. I actually translated book is the other one I may not get to. So yeah, I've just got stickies with ideas or what books I want to read for that. So Book Bingo, and then I've got Trope Bingo. So I've already got a line, and again you can see it's filling up quite nicely. I've got again stickies for ideas to remind me of what to do, and I like having the covers as well. I did have this great plan of making sure I read at least one book off every shelf of my books. I can't do that one, can I? No, because that's right. I was just thinking I read a book from that shelf, but I had already read a book from that shelf. So, yeah. They're probably not going to get much more of that done this year. I don't know. I might be wrong. There could be a couple more books that I could pull off. In fact, 12. No, I've already got 12. Because this one that I'm reading has been up there. Well. Anyway. And then I'm curious just to see book length. So most of the books I have been reading have been between 300 and 400 pages. I haven't read any really thick books yet. Only one, which I think is The Mistakes Were Made, Lucy Score book. And then I was curious, let's just do that, about all the tropes. Is enemies to lovers truly my favourite trope? So I did what I thought were all the ones that I was interested in, and then I did an other, and I've stuck in a flap with all the other ones that have come across my radar. I did not turn the timer back on. Alright, let's just run the timer again, just in case. I'd hate to be you're listening away and then I suddenly stop and then it just cuts to something different. Anyway, I've just been adding in the other tropes that have crossed or come from books that I'm reading, and I'll change this for next year. Then I've got my series tracker, which I just made with some reading stamps that I've got. So anything that's got a green heart is a finished series. I'm just going to have a mouthful of water. I could feel a cough brewing. So there's a couple, actually there's 3 on this page that have not started. The others, Story Lake, now the next book isn't due out till March of next year. I'm only halfway through Dream Harbour, and I think the book that came out this year is the last book. I don't think there is another book. I've got a few books to catch up with the Black Hawk series from Juliet Banks. Haven't started Windy City, but if you watched my July TBR, I will be starting it. I had to make a whole new page. So 1, 2, 3, 4 of these have finished now. That's the Game Changers. So, and the last book I think isn't coming out. Is it coming out this year or is it coming out next year? I can't remember. So then we've got some BK Borisons now. The Roxy Noir series, I've just added the duet that is these two. I don't think there's any more of these. I don't know enough about Ali Hazelwood. I was trying to think if I've actually read her before or not. I may have read her in an Amazon short series, but The Not in Love was the first full-length Ali Hazelwood I've read. A to Z, it's probably a little bit hard to tell. Let's just put these over here. These are, every time I come across a book that might fill a gap, I've been adding it to a sticky note. So I have got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 to go. And I think with Z, with X is okay. Z and V, maybe. Q. I may just actually know Q, Queen Charlotte, that I haven't read that yet, to do with the Bridgerton series. Okay, so we have got some Qs. I'm hoping that I can get this done, is what I am muttering about. Z is, oh yeah, the Z is it's 0 something, and it's a Ruth Ware, and it's probably too thrillery for me. But I haven't done any more digging than that. I think I saw it in somebody's vlog and I just wrote it down. So we're getting there. This is, I have just called it Flowing On. I can't remember its full name now, but it was started by Sarah's Nightstand and another channel, and I think this is year 2. I did last year as well. This year I have changed some of the prompts. So basically what I do, I picked a book to start with, and then everything else flows on from those books. So I try when I read a book to think about what I've got to follow on from it as well, with the exception of that I didn't think too well about that, because I then needed an author with the same initials, so I needed a BB, and I luckily on my Kindle had probably from a Stuff Your Kindle event, a short with a BB author. So luckily we managed to do that. So I will just carry on, and I generally try and read this book first. So it's sort of the first book I pick for the month and read it, and then I know I've done this month's square for that. And I ran out of room, so I just added a flap at the bottom. I'm not doing a proper book bracket. I decided just to go with the best books per quarter, so you can kind of see where we are at. And if I lift that flap, you can see that the favourite book from Q1 was In Your Dreams. The favourite book from Q2 ended up being BK Borison. It was tight between those two, I have to say. And as for those two, I don't know. I feel like I'm going to wait till I've got all 4 books before I decide on these two. So we will just have to see. So that is the end of what I had planned at the beginning of the year. I have got just a bookmark page thing in here. I have not until July been doing a written TBR, but with the Hardest Reading Challenge now, I feel like I need to be a little bit more structured. So I have started, I've just put it in here. I'm not making them fancy and doing spreads and things like that. I've just got an idea of what I want to read, and I have read that as well. So I've got a couple of sheets for that. It should work out, so December should be here. And then this is my Hardest Reading Challenge tracker. And it may be, I may be able to trim some of these pages down and just paste them into may not be able to paste, tip in these spreads into what I use next year. But I'm not averse to just making them again. We'll just see how we go. So I've got the bingo board. I'm doing the Ain't Nobody Got Time for That version, which means that bar a few squares, I only need to read one book per square. So I have written, I don't know how well it will show up. If you can see here, there's a 1, there's a 2, there's a 2, there's a 3. So for that square I only need one book. For that one I need 2. For that one I need 2. That one I need 3. So I've written on each square how many books I want to read to call that square done. And I've worked out that that comes to 40 books for me. If you were doing the full version, if you don't know what the hardest reading challenge is, it is not just a simple bingo board. Each square is its own challenge, and in the full version you can read between 2 and 12 books per square. So that's why it becomes the hardest reading challenge. And if you were to do that full version and you only read one book per prompt, it works out at 150 books. Which is why I'm doing the Ain't Nobody Got Time For version. Partly to see if I like this, because there are a lot of prompts I wouldn't normally put into any self-made bingos or anything like that. So we'll just see how we go. I have read the first book. I probably need to do something like some way of indicating on that bingo board that that square is now complete. We'll see. Anyway, so I have got it all set up through to prompt 25. And then I have got my Romanceopoly, which is now complete. And this year it was like going to college. And you had to read, there were 5 prompts that everybody had to read. And then you chose from the remaining sections. So you had a major and a minor and some electives. So you had to read 2 full sections and then 5 books from the remaining 3. So I achieved that at the beginning of June. So my core books, so that's why I had to read a romance book from a genre you don't typically read. Oh, that's right. That's right. It's not a genre, is it? I got mixed up between genre and trope. Don't tell anybody. I'm not rereading any books for Romanceopoly. I'm not submitting anything. It doesn't matter. So I just put all the covers under the flaps. So my major was the Romantic Arts, which was its contemporaries. Why it was there. And then my minor was the historical romances. What's that one? Okay, and then my electives. I think I've got rid of the other one, haven't I? Yeah. So anyway, the 5 books that I read for my electives, and then there were optional clubs and things, and I did one of them. So I read 24 books for Romanceopoly. And then what I have got at the back here is what I am calling a check these out section. Oh, one moment. That's just to make sure I don't cut off. We'll start it again. Start. Thank you. Yes, so I made this section at the end called Check These Out. I write down a heap of books, either from watching BookTube or going through Bookstagram. And so I wanted a way of recording where they were, and I didn't want to be making, I mean, if you can see how many pages I've got, this is where we're up to here. So it's not a simple double spread for me, because I just I just see so many books that I'm interested in. So I write down the name of the book, the author. I have evolved this. You'll see we'll slip to the back in a minute. I've evolved it, but on this page I had whether I've purchased the book, whether I've read the book, and what date it's due to be published. The lines through it are either no longer interested or I have purchased and read it. And then I don't know how well you can see there are little ticks here which indicate that I'm still interested in those books, but I haven't gone any further with them. So what I tend to do is, if I'm watching a sporting match, I will just sit down with this and my Amazon or Goodreads and go through and look at the book and the author and see if after reading the blurb I'm still interested in it. I give it a tick, and if I'm not, I cross it out. So I haven't actually got too far in doing that. I think that some of these are double entries as well. That's the only problem with this, is I don't know if I've already written the book down. So over time, as I said, I have evolved it to title, author, the reason it caught my attention, and the due date. And so I still will cross out, I don't know if I've got to cross out this late in the game because I haven't, oh yeah, although it's still under the old way. This is where I got rid of those two columns because I didn't need them. I didn't need that column either. So I will still come in and cross it out if I know it was on this list. So, I mean, I'd hate to, well, I love books anyway, so I wouldn't want to buy every single book on this list, but I would like to look into a lot of them. So, yeah. And in fact, there is something, okay, I have got written it down. That's today. For the hardest reading challenge, there is a book I'm interested in. So that's all that is in the main reading journal. In my other reading compendium, let's get that out of the way. So at the front I've got my archive. So I have been keeping, I don't know what I did prior to 2023. I'm not sure where that information is. If I kept it or not, I don't know. But certainly since then, while I've been using discs, I have actually generally done this. And I don't know, I was thinking about it just before. I'll either keep the reading log as is, or I may actually just rewrite it as this, because then it will literally just be one page to store in the archive. So those are the books that I read. That's 2023 and just my stats page. And then this is when I started making cover pages. So I've got my 2024 stats. That's when I started doing that. 2025 goals page, and I think this, I don't know why I kept the bingos, but I did. I'm going to keep my shelf, read your shelf photos though, just to see how the library evolves. This was printed really badly, as you can tell. And then I'm not sure that this is my current top 5, to be honest. And then what I have got, let's just get that tucked back in. I've got a section with all my Kindle books. Sorry, these are all my physical books. And they're grouped in several letters of the alphabet. So that's A to C. If I've got an author who I have several books of, they get their own page. And then just depending on the year that I read them, I come through and cross them out. But it is getting, and it's probably easier to see in the Kindle section. So I've got just a very short, small physical section compared to my Kindle section. So every letter of the alphabet has its own page, and then if I have slots by a specific author, I will give them their own page. But it is getting very messy. I was using fountain pens, but this is Happy Planner paper, and it's probably not even though it doesn't bleed through, it just is all looking very messy. So I actually am about to embark on a big redo of my catalogue. Anyway, so Kindle coming through here. I have a section for my physical historical romances. Again, several letters per page and various authors having their own page. And then I do have an author section at the back that I've done absolutely nothing with at this point in time. So that is what I currently use to track and record my reading and my books. But as I say, I am on the cusp of a revamp, and I will be starting some of it soon and some of it towards the end of the year, and I will show you as and when. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed having a little look at where we're at. I have one more video to film, and then I'm going back to my book in the warm, because it's a cold day here in wintry old New Zealand. Okay, I hope you enjoyed having a look, and I will catch you again in another video very soon. Thanks everyone. Bye for now.